Good evening. Journalism is a difficult job, not only because it tries hard to mirror society, the very part of ourselves we do well to hide, but also because the high points of our excellence and professional judgments are opened to our audience for rigorous scrutiny every day. And when a story is written and published, that's why you find pharmacists, carpenters, footballers, and career politicians, and everyone who is provoked enough making some attempts every day to teach the journalists how to be a journalist. But we forgive society for this era of entitlement, because for a vocation that gives society a voice, those voices of dissent must be heard, whether they are directed at us or elsewhere. We at JoyNews have been painted by the political artists of our country with different political colors. Depending on what day it is and the content of our independent broadcast, they choose to paint caricatures of us. Some days blue, other days green. Today they say we are blue, but we refuse to be, because the same ones who paint us blue today said we were green when the output of our microphones did not favor them. So on the show tonight, editors, reporters, journalists, anchors, and managers from the Joy Newsroom want to tell you what colors we wear, what defines us. Our colors are excellence, fearless, credible, and independent journalism. That I know. Tonight, we'll present to you the depths of planning, painstaking preparations, and hard work that went into our coverage of the 2020 elections. Tonight, we push back at those voices that have sought to attack our treasured credibility by telling you how they think we did it. We are live on the Joy News channel, also on Joy 99.7 FM, plus a dozen affiliates across the country. MyJoyOnline.com, we are also live. DSTV channel is 421, GoTV 144. We are live on all our social media platforms. Comment and share with the hashtags ElectionHQ or The Probe. Welcome to The Probe. I am MF Pao.
Nanado has 6,640,809 votes, representing 51.30%. John Mahama has 6,121,817 votes, representing 47.29%. Now others, including rejected votes, comes to 181,576 votes, representing 1.40%. Now, the 5 remaining constituencies to be published by your election headquarters have about 184,000 valid voters. With an average of 78% voter turnout, this could translate into 145,000 votes. Now, if all 145,000 votes are given to John Dramani Mahama, it is statistically impossible for the NDC candidate to achieve 50% plus 1 or more votes. Now, based on the above, your election headquarters projects Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo to win the 2020 presidential elections. Let's start with the permutations for President John Dramani Mahama. There are 69 constituencies to go, with a registered voter population we know now of 3,827,081. Now, at the current average turnout of 68%, this translates into 2,600,000 7,952,483 votes. Now, the current provisional valid votes cast is 7,988,676. Now, when you add it to the expected number of votes from the 69 constituencies, this comes to 10,545,267 votes. Therefore, 50% plus 1 comes to 5,272,633. Now, at 206 constituencies, as Raymond just told us, President John Dramani Mahama is at 3,710,702 votes. For President Mahama to reach 5.3 million, he needs 1,598,355 votes. On average, he is capturing around 46%. On average, he's capturing 46% of the provisional valid votes. Now, assuming President Mahama does 10% better than he's currently doing at 46%, he has done across the remaining 69 undeclared constituencies, he will achieve an additional 1,412,346, which is below 1,598,355 required to make 50% plus 1. What about the MPP presidential candidate, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo? Now, same permutations apply, but with different outcomes. There are 69 constituencies to go with a registered voter population, as we said already, of 3,827,081. Now, at the current average turnout of 68%, this translates into 2,652,483 votes. Now, the current provisional valid votes cast is 7,988,676. When added to the expected number of votes from the 69 constituencies, this comes to 10,545,267 votes. Therefore, 50% plus 1 comes to 5,272,633. Now, at 206 constituencies, Nana Addo is at 4,213,710 votes. Now, for Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo to reach 5.3 million, he needs 1,117,663 votes. Now, assuming Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo does 10% lower than his current 52.17% he has done across the remaining 69 undeclared constituencies, he will achieve additional 1,210,716, which is 93,053 more than 50% plus 1. What does this mean? We therefore project it is almost statistically impossible for President John Dramani Mahama to achieve 50% plus 1. Our projection is that Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo will win the 2016 presidential election.
From the first ballot to the projection, the JoyNews story tonight on The Probe. And of course, we've just brought you the projection from 2016. We also brought you the projection from 2020. And tonight, my colleagues are joining me. I told you about the managers of the Joy Newsroom, the editors, the journalists who are on the ground, some of them joining us tonight to tell the JoyNews story so you get a fair understanding of the processes that we go through to bring you what we bring you in terms of the coverage. So you see on the screens there, Richard Kojo Nyako, we have Evans Mensah, the head of our political desk. We have Erastus Asare Donko. Israel Lai reported from the EC headquarters in 2016 and also did this in 2020. Gift Yando Apia will represent the anchors tonight on the probe. Ernest Kojomain reported from Odododio constituency. Samson Ladia Yenini was here as an anchor also in the studio, but he'll give us the history as well. Albert Sore is also with us. Winston Amwa will join us. Of course, we have the statisticians as well. Elom Nyahe will also join us. But I'll start with you, Evans Mensah and Samson Ladia Yenini. We'll start from this year's, planning and preparations towards election 2020. Evans, together with the supervision of Elvis Kwashi, General Manager, who gave you all the support you needed. You reported to him directly. Walk us through the processes that we had to go through in terms of planning to get to where we are for our coverage. Hello, Evans. I'm starting with you. Hello, Evans. Evans will have to unmute yourself. We can't hear you just yet. But whilst we wait for Evans, Samson, I brought you in also on the issues of history, also because of your participation in the previous elections that we've covered. I'm sure as far back as your memory can take you, let's go through our history in terms of our coverage.
I could hear Evans very clearly. Can you hear me too? I
can hear you very clearly, but I couldn't hear Evans.
Oh, okay. So, look, I have been with multimedia since 2003, right after I left Legon in the 2002-2003 academic year. And working from Kumasi, you know that 2004, that was just like a year after I had joined, we had elections to take care of. And so I remember the same sort of bureau that this year was set up in Kumasi, as in the Ashanti region, was the same thing that was set up when I was reporting from Love FM in Kumasi. So that's as far back as I remember, and as early as I joined the multimedia family, even as a national service person, and right after my, within 6 months, I got confirmed and I had to work officially. So I remember having to get on the field and work in a most tiring way, supplying information to Joy for the purposes of the elections for that year. So that's my very first recall. I'm sure in the course of this discussion, this program, we will tell the rest of the story. Also from when I came to Accra and then have done it together right at the center, right from the election headquarters, from the Joy newsroom, going on the field and coming back, also staying in the newsroom. So I've done both. I've done it where I had to go to polling stations, cover the process, follow to collation centers, and send information together with pink sheet, clear information and collation center information to the Joy newsroom, as in the election headquarters. And I have done it at the point where I have to be right there in the newsroom or in the election headquarters, whilst others are out there and supervising them to bring in the news.
Okay.
So we are able to call the elections.
We'll get into the very fine details as we go along. You'll get where I'm going with this. But Evans, we'll try again if we can get Evans Mensah, because this particular election and preparations, I saw it all. And most times I'd had to do Newsnight alone, because you have to go through the rigorous processes in terms of planning and preparations for this particular election. In some cases, we'll talk about the cost, the time, and the human resources and all. But Evans, I'm sure that they will release your your microphone for us to hear you at this point. So let's go through the rigorous processes. Tell us what we went through together with Elvis Kwashi to get to where we are in terms of the planning.
So can you hear me all right?
Perfect, I can hear you now.
Fantastic. So this started December of 2019 when Elvis called me and said, listen, I mean, normally we start normally December before the election year. And the conversation started about, okay, should we, normally what I would have done was to put everybody in a retreat and then planning. But we thought, okay, I mean, can we at least get some of the basics first before we bring everybody in? And two key things stood out that we needed to get right. One was the software that everybody saw play out so nicely from election eve last week, a week ago today exactly. How do we get the software that is better than what we used in the 2016 election? Was the first one, because that is a very expensive piece of software to get for elections. I mean, the biggest part of the budget will probably go to that. And then the second was, how do we get boots on the ground in every constituency? That was a major hurdle. It's a major logistical nightmare.
In every constituency, you mean 275 constituencies?
Plus, yes, 275 constituencies, and then have redundancy in place. So if there are breaking news elsewhere that you didn't anticipate, you will send the extra hands in there to cover it. That was the two main things that we needed to sort out. And we started having a conversation about this. Elvis obviously knew the person that we had used before. This thing worked well. We had to try and approach. And then we started the conversations. And then we started, approaching the individuals. Then I got in touch with all our correspondents and said, listen, I needed you to help us recruit everybody we need for election day in all 275 constituencies. We didn't want one constituency to go without at least one reporter in there to report for us. That was a big task, and getting the right people in that you could check their backgrounds thoroughly before you give them accreditation to report for us was major. Now, we started in January, February, right? We started having the first meetings, and we know we had to do this with Adom. So we had to now bring in Adom into the conversation, and meetings started quite earnestly in January. I remember our first meeting was in January, and then we assigned roles, who was going to recruit for which region. Now we have 16 regions, remember, and so no longer 10. So we assigned people to recruit particular regions. And then unfortunately, MFA, COVID-19 hit us in March, and everything was thrown at that. I mean, all the plans we had put down to recruit, the software, everything was affected by that. Nothing moved for a while. We're trying to still figure out how do we cover these elections within a COVID-19 environment. It was tough. We waited for a while until the lockdowns had happened. After the lockdown, then we kicked in again, and we thought, listen, now we have to throw everything at this and recruit. For the recruitment was so key. Without the boots on the ground, we couldn't do our jobs, right? And so the reporters will tell you how myself, Parker Winston, Wilson will constantly be calling them every day. Where are the names we want? We drew the Excel sheet. We put the names in there. We kept changing them because, of course, some of the people they gave us, I insisted in Accra, when they give you a list, call them. I said all the time to my colleagues I worked with at Parker, MFI, I say this all the time: trust but verify.
Exactly.
I trust my colleagues.
Sometimes very annoying the way you do it.
Exactly. I say I don't hate you. I trust you, but I'll verify. Give me the list. I'll call the people myself and make sure that the names you've given me are indeed the names that are and people we can trust. Can they articulate themselves in both English and Twi? Because obviously we are working with Adom. We did this meticulously. After every month, I'll ask Parker to check. Let's do another audit. I'll call the reporters. They kept on changing because they themselves appreciated that the people they've given us, they must meet the standards. And people fell off the grid. Some came back on. And then we used the software. We had a major hitch with the software that we had planned. 3 months in, we realized that we have to switch completely. right? And then we switched. It just have to be decisive. Elvis had to tell you, we had to make the decisive decision at some point. We switched. We brought in a different vendor we've used before in 2008, and if Tony, who is a software vendor, who lead person, will tell you where the software got in and how we have to work on that software over time, over more than 4 months, to get it to the version that you saw from election eve a week today. It's amazing work. Sleepless nights with a team in the US, the team in Ghana, and our team working round the clock overnight, almost all the time because of the time differences. Of course, Ken Ansan himself, the CEO, had to get involved, holding emergency Zoom conferences, all to make sure that the software was right, because that was the data that was going to sort of aggregate the data, help us with analysis, and so you couldn't get it right. You couldn't get it wrong, so to speak. And that went in for hours, for days, for months, for weeks, until we got a version out there. And I must say, the recruits that we got, God bless their souls, we worked them hard, but they performed. And that's the only reason why we were able to put the figures we put together accurately in a timely fashion, and we projected bullseye, as the Electoral Commission itself later called MFA.
Well, Winston, your deputy, is also with us tonight via Zoom. Winston, I was hoping you'll be with me in the studio because there's a question I've been dying to ask you. Maybe Evans will not tell me, but Winston, you worked closely with Evans Mensah during this preparation and processes leading to our coverage. Did you plan such that at any point in time you will get figures from elsewhere apart from what we are going to get on the ground?
Well, MFA, let me say good evening. And you do know, you're aware of the system that have been put in place, that, we have, in our situation room, we have 16 computers and we have 16 persons, getting results from all the regions. And Evans has talked about our agents and the important role the agents play. Now, our correspondents had to ensure that they stay at the collation center until the Electoral Commission declares the result, MFA. Our job was just to report the results as the Electoral Commission had declared. So in our situation room, those who are checking the results, what they do is that once the results are declared, now it gets in there, it's handed over to the team that actually feeds the software. So it's very important. Now, the software, as you saw it, and on air that day, you'd hear Evans and I say, okay, so we're told some results have come in, let's check. So what you would realize is that, look, the moment the Electoral Commission declares any result at the collation center, our correspondents would quickly inform us. When they inform us, we'll do all the cross-checking. It doesn't happen that once the correspondent calls and says, this is the result, that's the end of it. And that's why we have supervisors who are also supervised. And the lead supervisor in all of this, and you went to the situation room, as you can see right now, the situation room was actually supervised in totality by the Chief Operating Officer, Ken Ansan, because you had, the Chief Finance Officer in the strong room. And the strong room were actually collating the results after everything. They were the ones who would do all the additions and determine whether it has become statistically impossible for one candidate to catch the other, and thus inform us that we can go ahead and project. I mean, this is a system that ensures that everything is done. At no point, and that's why you would realize that the percentage that we came out with is very close, similar to the Electoral Commission's. At no point did we on our own go for results anywhere. Okay. Mind you, our responsibility is not to declare results. Our responsibility is to tell you the results that have been declared by the Electoral Commission. And when we realize that it's statistically impossible for another candidate to catch the other, what we do is not even to declare a winner, but to project a winner, MFA.
Okay. Well, Winston, so some of the supervisors are also with us tonight. Edem Naite was one of the supervisors, but Elom Nyahe worked closely with the statisticians. I'll come to him shortly on that. But Israel, you were at the Electoral Commission. We're working closely with Electoral Commissioners at the collation centers, like Winston and Evans has told us. But you were there in 2016. You were there this year as well. What was the difference? Tell us about the processes.
All right, so maybe before I get to that, let me just go back and give you a bit of the history. And I had to pull out a promo script that I put together some time back, and I'm just going to run this by you. So I was to do this promo with Araba Kumsi. So it goes like this. We gave it to you in 1996, 2000, 2004, and 2008. In the second round, how do you want it? Then Araba comes in and says, hotter, spot on, as it happens from all sides and angles, with all the drama, all the way till the commissioner calls.
I can see the smile on Evans's face. I'm sure the choice of you and Araba doing that promo. Interesting lines in there in that promo. Even something is laughing. Well, did that promo get on air? Something. Something, you wrote that promo?
I remember that promo.
Oh, you remember? Interesting lines in there.
Right. So it tells you how far back this goes. But let me just give you a bit of the history as well. So initially, when we started with the coverage, what we sought to do at Joy FM was to give the viewers and Ghanaians in general an accurate representation of what's happening on the ground. So we're going to polling stations, we're picking results from polling stations, and this involved everybody else. On-air personalities, I recall back then, they will go out there on the ground, and then we'll be calling them, and then to tell us, I'm at this polling station, this is the result. Now, what we're seeking to do was to let the people know that we're policing the process. We're telling them what is happening on the ground. So if you've been to a polling station and they counted the ballots at the end of the day, and they told you that NPP had 150, NDC had 200. If you listen to Joy, you would hear us repeat the same thing. So then people, the voters then had some assurance that, okay, my votes actually counted. It is reflecting exactly what is on the ground. Now, over the years, we realized that we had to move it on and scale it up to the point where we decided that we're going to collate the constituencies.
Okay.
Which is what we have right now, where we put together the constituencies. It goes into a software. At the end of the day, we're able to project. And then my role at the EC in 2016, when I went there, and it's also, again, because we've learned over the years that during an election, you hear all sorts of reports coming from the ground, all sorts of rumors coming from the ground. Somebody says they've snatched a ballot box here. Somebody says in this particular election in 2020, we talked about some yellow ink that was being applied. All right. Now, when that goes up, people wonder, so what is happening? Then we have the EC come in and address the issue and tell us that this is why this is so. Or there are some people who are saying that my biometric machine, verification machine is not working. Okay. What do? We had the EC in real time tell the people, speak to the whole of Ghana and tell the people what they're supposed to do. People are in line, they're in queue, and it's past 5 p.m. and they're wondering, what do we do? And then we tell the EC comes back and says, these people, this is what you're supposed to do. So we gave them real-time access to all their people on the ground.
Okay.
That was in 2016. And that was what we're seeking to repeat in 2020. 2020, I had a bit of a challenge getting access. So we couldn't start and do it the way we wanted to do. But then again, I must say, the EC had learned some things from 2016, and they decided that they were going to be prompt with their press releases, right? But apart from the press releases, we're also there. If
and
you
your
realize,
interactions with Dr. Sribo Kweku.
Dr. Sribo Kweku, if there was any issue, Dr. Sribo Kweku, I'll just speak with him, tell him this is what we're getting. What do you tell? What it also goes to do is to calm nerves.
Okay.
Because people are agitated. They hear stuff and what should we do? When there's nobody telling them anything, it's likely that you're going to create confusion. But when you have the EC come in to say, this is what should be, it calms people's nerves. And which is really the role I was playing there at the Election Commission.
Well, one thing that runs through from everything that you, Evans, and something has said so far is the issue about the reporters. So, seniors, just permit me at this point to deal with 4 of our selected reporters. Key because Ernest Menu was at the Ododo constituency. Erastus Osare-Donko led the team in the Ashanti region. Richard Kojo-Nyarko did same in the Central region. Albert Sori did in the Upper East region. So I'll deal with the 4 of them at this point. Well, let's start from the Ashanti region because Erastus Osare-Donko did a very fine job from the Ashanti region. Erastus, I would want to find out about the charge that was given to you and your team because you had to train the people from the region as well, the reporters that were recruited in your region. What kind of charge were you giving as you went out there to gather information for the election headquarters?
Well, thank you very much. And we started with, just like Evan said, and in fact, the calls that kept coming in from Accra, the pressure to do the right thing was super. But at the end of the day, it helped us to deliver as well. It started with a trainer of trainers workshop. I went, represented Ashanti region, a multimedia group in Kumasi. We met Evans Mensah, Samson Ladi, Anyenene, the whole team in Accra. And they did a training for us on all aspects of reporting, on elections, from the legal matters, everything. And so we had the task of coming back to Kumasi, dealing with Bruna Hafo and Ashanti region, inviting all the recruits that we did. And just like Evan says, what went into the recruits is a lot. And at the end of the day, we had to drop some people because they did not fit what we were looking for, recruit new people, train them, and all that. We held a training workshop for all of them in Kumasi. After that, we had to, the individuals that we replaced, we had to bring them back to the office, give them training again, and then send training manuals to all of them and make sure, go back to all of them and cross-check to find out whether they have questions, so we provide answers. So after everything, we had to do something like a simulation, find out how they were going to behave on election day, what they were supposed to do, just to make sure that they got everything right. One, we told them the critical points were, you are not supposed to get results from anybody or any other source except the Electoral Commission. And if you don't get the certified results, the pink sheets, you don't leave your constituency. And many of them had to stay over the next day up to the evening to get the certified true copies, get the pink sheets, and then send them to the platform that we created, the Ashanti platform, for team in Accra to ask questions to confirm whether indeed that is what they wanted and they've gotten it before you can leave your constituency. And so a lot went into the coverage of this election. We had 3 monitoring teams aside each person to each constituency, and we had 47 constituencies. We had persons manning all these constituencies. We had flashpoints. And so in places like Fomena, Krufum, Adansia Sokwa, we had Nanaya leading a team that had a TVU, a live view with them, and they were moving around. So when we hear anything, they have to move in there, cross-check, and give us live reports. We had one in Kumasi, and I led that team. We had one which was led by Ohiminteria, which was monitoring and supervising all the correspondence that we had. So this is what went into covering Ashanti region, the whole of Ashanti region for the elections.
Erastus Osare-Donko there, but Richard Kojo-Nyarko, was it any different for the Central region? You know, these are journalists, they talk a lot, but I'll try to, if you can make it brief for me. Richard, what was the charge for you in the Central region? Was it any different from what it was in the Central Ashanti region?
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so the same standard that Erastus espoused from the Ashanti region, we went through the same processes, the training processes. So, for instance, I trained people from here. We did the training for them, and then the same instructions that were given to everybody, like in the Ashanti region, you don't leave your collation center until you get the certified result. And so that was the standard that we upheld. In fact, I have covered election-related matters for multimedia, 2008, 2012, 2016. But I can tell you on authority that this one, the standard was very high. The standard was extremely high because this one, and unless you provide a pink sheet, the results would not be put together in the strong room of the election headquarters. And so the standard in this case was very high. And the reporters that we deployed across the central region, some of them, even in some of the constituencies, we put 2 reporters there, depending on how big the constituency was. And so that was how the story went for the people in the central region. Central region had its first collated results from the Chufuhiman Lower Dejura constituency around 1:54 a.m. The people did not sleep. It stayed through to the Jumaku Enyanesiam constituency where we provided videos and everything. So in one of the videos, you see Kesel Atuforsen, the incumbent MP for Ejumaku, keenly monitoring the process. And there was a recounting at the collation center. And the video was on live. And so we didn't do anything. And luckily, in some of the constituencies, the results were projected. So it isn't that they did that one in secret or something. So it was projected. The reporters there would read whatever was going on and all of that. And apart from that, you need to take screenshots of what has been signed and declared at the constituency level. And so that was the job for us. And people had to stay. In Upper Dentra West constituency, the reporter, they had to stay there 3 days because that results delayed. There were some issues. People contested the results there. And so the guy had to stay there until he got the collated results. He was not returned to Cape Coast. So he traveled all the way from Cape Coast, went to Upper Dentra West, and then he didn't even have to sleep. Even though he had a hotel ready for him, he didn't even go there. And he had to stay on his feet throughout that period. For 3 consecutive days, the guy was there. And so that was what we went through, and the reporters in the central region went through, MFA.
Okay, well, so that's, we've dealt with Ashanti, we've dealt with Central Region, Erastus Asaridonko and Richard Kojo-Nyako. Thank you very much. I can let you off. Let me do Albert Sorry and then NS Kojo-Menu at this point. Albert, you dealt with the Upper East Region. Were you taking results from elsewhere than the Collation Center and what the EC had put out in terms of the pink sheet?
Yeah, so just like Richard said, what we also did in the Upper East Region was that even when you are at the collation center and the results are announced, you still have to take a screenshot of the pink sheet from the Electoral Commission officials, and then you put it on the platform before the results could be, taken and then, eventually put on air. So in most of the cases, even when all results had come, we had an issue with Talensi, for example, where after the results had been declared, there was an issue and they had to move from the collation center in the Talensi district to Bolgatanga in order to resolve that issue before the results were eventually announced. Now, we had to wait, even though we had the results that had earlier been given. We still had to wait until the following day when the issue was resolved. The results were announced, and then we took a screenshot of the pink sheet. So that was the standard. You needed to have proof of the results by taking a screenshot of the pink sheet. Then, the results would be taken when you put them on the platform that we had. Okay. In Navrongo Central, all the constituencies in Timpani, where Joseph Pemka, the Deputy Attorney General, lost his seat, it was the same thing. We had to wait for a very long time because even though we had the results that had been given, we didn't have a snapshot of the pink sheet because the Electoral Commission officials sometimes were busy. They will tell you to hold on till they are ready, they are a little bit less busy before they can show you the pink sheet for you to take your shot and put it on the platform. So that was what we did for all the constituencies that we reported in the Upper East Region.
Well, Albert, thank you. How about you, Ernest? You had concerns about going to Odododio for obvious reasons. You were lobbying Evans Mensah, but it didn't happen. You still had to go to the Odododio constituency. But whilst there, did you do the right thing? Were you taking results from elsewhere? Where were you getting your results from?
Evans wanted to sign my death warrant, but I was...
But thankfully, you're safe. Even your mother had to come in.
He begged and begged.
Yes.
He even invoked his mom.
Yes, the mother. The mother had to come in, but it didn't work.
My mom is watching, Evans. My mom is watching. And I tell you, when I told her it was a Friday, I told her that I was going to do that. She almost cried. She almost wept. She said, the people want to kill my son. But then, of course, I mean, it's part of journalism. Sometimes you have to go to these areas where you dread the most just so that you can bring information to the people. And so we went through the training. Evans, you took us through training, 2 major ones. And of course, the third one was a briefing, but you took advantage of that to just go through the protocol again. And spending 2 days at Odododio was interesting, eventful. You saw a lot happening there. I spent a lot of time at the collation center, even from the beginning, because that was a huge center. Before collation, it was a polling station and had about 6 centers. And so the numbers there were quite huge. In fact, at the beginning, you saw that there was some agitation from the electorate because they were not happy with queue management and all of that. But the most important thing, when you talk about the collation, look, there was never a time I looked elsewhere for anything. Even when there was something happening, and as part of the training, Evans would tell you that, look, you need to know your constituency. And so I did a recce. I made contacts, both official and contact with local people. I made friends there. And these people were my eyes, even when I went away, when there was gunshots somewhere. Of course, I had colleague journalists who were there who could help me with any information. Even when I left the collation center, and I remember at dawn, there was some shooting incident at a hotel that the incumbent MP was lodging. There were people there just so that in case something happens, you'd be aware of what went on. And so we got the figures from the polling stations, and then as declared by the presiding officers, and then at the collation center, it took, the collation was done by 2 p.m. the next day. And all through the process, you were there. I mean, you couldn't leave because that was where the action was. Now, during the coverage, at the time that the results were trickling in, because we didn't have the full figures at the time, producers will tell you that bring us polling station results, but put a contest to it. So that, for instance, and I remember Evans called me and said, let's do this for us because around that time, people needed to hear the results. But you put together, say, 70 out of 270 polling stations, and you put a context to it. That these are polling stations that, for instance, vote NDC over the period.
Okay. And
so if you see that the trend is changing, then it's telling a particular story. And that is what we did. Unfortunately, some people have misconstrued that as final results we brought to the people. But no, if you listen carefully, we told you, we put context to it to say that, look, these are results from so-and-so polling stations out of the total. Eventually, when the results, and let me say that at the collation center, they had a projector so everybody could see. Okay. They entered the code of the polling station, the numbers for each of the the candidates, I beg your pardon, for both parliamentary and presidential. And it was quite painstaking. I mean, it was a lot of work. You were wondering.
Well, so at some point, Ernest was reporting from the collation center, and he was giving us some of the polling station results. I was on at that time, and we just wanted the collated results from the Electoral Commission. It looks like Ernest is back with us. Ernest, if you can wrap up on that for us. We lost you momentarily.
Yes, so the point I was making is that once the projected result was done on the Excel, which was projected, I took a screenshot of that, sent it to the team, and then I had to type it out because social media, for instance, will need it for graphics and all other. And then the final one was to get the pink sheet. My supervisor then calls me and goes through every single line with me just to be sure that this is what was declared. Of course, we have the visuals as well for the declaration. And so that was how that was how serious we took the coverage, and of course diligent. We're very diligent in that process.
Okay. Ernest Menu, thank you so much. He reported from the Ododuduodio constituency. I'll let you off and deal with my seniors at this point because they did most of the work. The reporters did their work on the ground and sent it to the coalition or the situation room right here. And Edem Naite was one of the supervisors. And I've also talked about Elom Nyahe. He was also part of the statistician. So I'll bring in the two of you at this point, Edem Naite and then, of course, Elom. I'll bring in Gifty. We'll talk about the anchoring and then something, and then, of course, Evans and then Winston Amwa. But Edem and Elom, so I've heard the reporters say that they kept on receiving calls from their supervisors to ensure that the results they are bringing in were from the pink sheet from the EC at the collation centers. It appears that you gave them a lot of pressure, Edem. Edem, you have to unmute yourself, Edem. Hello, Edem. Let's work on Edem's Zoom. Edem, you have to unmute yourself. We can't hear you.
Okay, hello, Emma. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Much better now. We all forget, don't we? So let's talk about the pressure you gave our people on the ground.
Okay, great. Good evening to all our viewers and those who are listening to us by Joy FM as well. All right, so I'll just take you through the process that I played and the role I played as a supervisor during the coverage of the elections. You've heard a lot of the stories. It was painstaking. But now when the reporters are on the ground, especially so when it got to the point of, bringing in the results, because the coverage was from the morning. So when you come to the situation room, or if you like, our strong room, there are 16 computers over there mirroring all the 16 regions. Now, we have folders on these computers that have all the constituencies in there. Mm-hmm. Now, these folders are networked into the collation room and into another verification room before it finally goes on air. And then it is mirrored on the magic wall that you'd often see Evans and the rest of the presenters using. So you will have to trust your backroom staff, because at that point in time, Evans, Mensah, Winston, yourself, and all the other guys who did the reporting on television didn't have access to the backroom.
Just a bit of clarity there, Edem. So what you're saying is that the results as they come in, the presenters don't have direct access to it. The presenters, that's Evans, Mensah, Winston, myself, Gifty, something. None of us had access to the results that were being brought in.
No, you do not have access to it until you see it on the magic wall. Or sometimes we will have to, especially so if it is, for instance, I remember the Yagaba Kobori, when their results came in, I personally had to run around and tell Evans and Winston, went to the control room, told the directors over there that now we have this, because few days to the elections, we had issues there. And then quickly they will focus on it. So they had to trust and depend on everybody that was working backroom to be able to report what was going on air. So by the time we were receiving the results, the reporters, of course, we didn't have 30,000 plus reporters on the ground. We had correspondents at all the constituencies. So when the results are coming in, what you do is you have team members manning the computers, and you, the supervisor, once they tell you that this has come in, you need to verify. You will call back the reporter on the grounds. Are you at the collation center? Yes. Are you sure you are getting these results from the EC's collation center? They tell you yes. Now you will have to send in a pink sheet, okay? And sometimes we pushed them to even record the declaration process and send that one in as well. And I remember there was this incident where we got one that came in very fast, and I had to call the reporter on the grounds. I asked, it looks like yours came in really very fast. Where did you get this from? Then he said, he got it from one of the political parties. I was very furious because I asked him, was that the orientation you were given? Is that what you were told? You are supposed to get results only from the EC's collation center. And then he apologized and went back to do the right thing. So we won't impute results usually that do not have the pink sheet. In cases where you are told that the EC officials are not allowing, we got some of those, and not allowing them to take pictures of the pink sheet immediately, you insisted that at least get them on record declaring the process. So that also became a backup for us. Now, when you verify all of these, then you have team members manning every region, and then they go into the constituency folder, then they impute the results. These results now go into our collation center, which is manned by all the top finance people in multimedia. So they will have to go through all that process. If there is any discrepancy, they come back to you, you check and check again. When they are done, it goes into another verification room. That room has our CFO sitting at the top of it. So you will ensure that everything is right before it gets into the control room, and then it gets projected onto the screen for the presenter to see. So seriously, it's a very vigorous process, and we didn't take anything for granted.
Okay, so once it leaves your desk, let's say it goes to Elom's desk, the team of statisticians, before it gets to the top, where we have a team of, finance persons who also go through it before it goes into the smart wall for us to project. Elom, so once it leaves the collation room or the situation room, do you do changes there?
Thank you, MFA. Let me say that as finance professionals, for us, one of the main areas we looked at was controls. And we're very concerned about how strong our internal controls were for this process. And so all of us have said that we recruited staff, but we recruited people. But the interesting thing is that we recruited multimedia staff, because we wanted to make sure that these people exhibited the ethos of multimedia, the key one being integrity. And we all know how we hold dearly integrity in the multimedia group. And so we made sure that in all 275 constituencies, everyone there was a staff of multimedia. That was one of the first controls. Another thing we made sure we did was that in the strong room and in all the other rooms where we collated, we were on a local area network. We had to make sure that if the internet went off, we weren't in trouble. And then, like Adam and everyone has mentioned, at every stage, they were supervisors. Okay. And so back to your question, MFA.
Yeah.
Adam kept prompting us about constituencies, results that were coming in, and as they came in, we had two collation centers. We had a collation to help us call, and we also had a collation for the back end of the magic wall, the software that Evans and Winston and everyone was using. And so in the back end for the magic wall, we had eight finance staff there. And these eight.
Did you say eight finance staff? Okay.
Yeah, eight finance staff there. Yeah, 8. And each person looked at a number of regions.
What were the 8 people all doing there for just figures?
We had to make sure that we got it right, okay, and we got it spot on. And so we had 8 people in there, and each of them managed 2 regions. In cases where a region had more constituencies, like Ashanti region, then it would be 1 person. And in a region where there were smaller number of constituencies, then you would have 1 person do 2. And so we had 8 people there. But even with this, once the results came in from Adam's team and we picked it from the software and to input at the back end of the magic wall, you still needed your supervisor to also do a check, because even at that level, we could go into the folders and look at the pink sheet. So the pink sheet didn't end at the strong room, but even at the collation center, we could also see the pink sheets. And in there, we have built a lot of controls in the software so that if votes were more than vote casted were more than registered voters, the software will prompt us to know what was happening. Okay. Then there was another room where we had 6. That was where our CFO was Ransford. That was where Ken kept coming and going, because that was where we were putting everything together to call. And so
even the head of finance, Ransford and the rest were being supervised. Is that what you're saying?
Ransford was supervising that team that were collating for a call.
And he was being checked.
Our CFO was there, and our COO kept coming into that room And I remember very well that when it was 6 p.m., 6 p.m., we looked at the numbers that had come in, we looked at the constituencies that had come in, and we asked ourselves if we wanted to call at that point. But at that point, we noticed that there was still a lot going to come in from the central region, and there was still a lot going to come in from the Greater Accra region. And these were regions that have been swing. These are regions that have been close. And so it was going to be difficult to call because the results that were even coming in this 2020 election could tell that the margins had reduced greatly. Okay. And the NDC had made gains and serious gains. And so we had to wait. And so we kept collating, we kept analyzing, we kept doing the if analysis and everything. And eventually 5 constituencies to go, it was very clear. And we called the elections. Okay. And it was spot on. It was just what the EC called. Okay. So for the purposes of, clarity and then also stressing on that very issue about when you get the final figures, nothing changes. You put out what you got. Nothing changes, MFA. Okay. It is just what we got. Okay. And we checked it with a pink sheet and we inputted it in the back end of the software. And you didn't have Evans, Winston, or, okay, Israel was not in the office. Samson was around. How about Gifty? All of them coming, or Edem herself, coming to the back room to tell you to, put something. They've heard another figure from somewhere. So the reporter may be wrong. So putting this one rather for the smart wall. Evans and Winston especially. Winston and MFR didn't come. Winston and Wilson didn't come there. Edem kept coming because Edem was inputting a lot of results from the constituencies. And these were pink sheets her team was leaving in the back end for us to pick. So she kept coming and prompting us. This has come in, this has come in, that has come in. Guys, let's go. This has come in, this has come in, let's go. And so she kept coming. Winston and Evans, it was only when we were going to call that they came. And we had a very good analysis. We looked at 2008, we looked at 2016, we looked at the swings, we looked at the close regions, and Winston and Evans gave us history behind it. They gave us information on the trends, and we had to wait. We had to collate some more, and eventually we called the elections. Okay, Elom, you settled the score for us. So I'll leave you to go and rest after the hard work, and I'll deal with the rest of them at this point. But Gifty, Gifty had long hours on TV anchoring. So Evans and Winston, so with all the pressure you gave us, you didn't even have access to the magical. You were just playing with it as and when the figures were coming in.
Yeah, I mean, let me tell you a story. I had just closed, I had gone home to rest. This must have been Tuesday into Wednesday. Winston and I, we stood from 5 p.m. Wednesday, remember, from 5 p.m. till 6:30 a.m. I had just gone to rest. And then I woke up, I startled out of sleep because I just slept for 2 hours. And I saw Ken, who is our CEO's missed call. I called back. I said, hey, we are ready. Come and look at the numbers and let's go and call. And then I drove in like crazy to the office. That was the first time I got into the room where the calling team were analyzing the figures. They showed it to me. Winston came, we looked at it. A team of how many people? We talked about it. A team of how many people? This room was, there was a CFO, Ransford, and they had, if I'm not mistaken, 5. So there's 6 people in the room. Okay. Right? Plus Ransford himself, 6 people in the room who were doing, their job was just to analyze for calling, right? And in addition to that was Kenansa himself, who is a chief operating officer. So I walked in, Winston also came in, we looked at the numbers, we gave them a few of the history as Elon had just indicated. In fact, let me go back. The night before we called, we were very close to calling. Okay. And we did analysis, and Winston will tell you this. We said the gap was not big enough, right? And a lot was still to come. Okay, then we said, should we call as of the night before, or should we wait for a few more constituencies to come in? Because the software analysis that Ransford and his team had done was spot on even at that time. But again, it is better, we thought, to be accurate rather than to be speedy, right?
Yeah.
Rather than to be fast. And so we thought, okay, let's go on air. Let's use our analysis to do the path to 50+1. And so you saw that there was another analysis we did the night into the morning, which was 50% plus 1, myself and Winston. That was, if you look at the call we did, the analysis that we used for the 50% plus 1 was almost the same we did for the calling. But in the night before, we thought, let's be accurate, let's be spot on, and let's give the people an indication of where we are going. And that is why we did that. That's why we did that analysis. That was the background to that. That was the first time I went to that room. I didn't want to go there at all because you feel too much pressure. So I stayed off completely.
Okay. Well, Gifty, so let's talk about the long hours that you had to endure in terms of, anchoring. But first, I want to find out from you, because there were times that you were not on air. Were you trying to, interfere with the work of the Situation Room? You are a female, so maybe you had your way with them at some point in time. Were you trying to, interfere with the process?
Interfere, I don't know. But you see, that I must say that this room, that when you get to the Situation Room, there's another tiny room in the Situation Room. That room, I never went there. I never went to that room.
Why?
And well, it wasn't my business to go there.
Okay.
First of all, for you as an anchor, you have complete confidence in the team in the Situation Room. You have complete confidence in the team that is producing you. Because you see, we've taken our viewers through all the processes that we had to go through to put the figures together. At this point, your level of confidence is really high. And Evans talks about the when he was called into and was taken through the analysis. So the point is that a presenter doesn't come on air to speak his or her mind. You come to speak based on the figures that we've put together. You come to speak based on the background information that you have from years of covering this process. And so I remember 2016 when Evans was calling that election. It was, I think it was about midnight or so. I was standing right there in the room.
It was 2 a.m.
It was 2 a.m., yeah. And he was reading from a script that has been put together, carefully put together based on the figures. So you don't come and speak what's on the, what's going on.
So he didn't come to say what's on his mind. He didn't just do it off his head. That's not what he did. Okay, I wasn't here, so I thought that's what he did. Okay.
Right. No, I mean, even if you look at this year's, first of all, the analysis on the 50% plus 1 and then the projection, the scripts are usually put together based on the figures available. So you don't come and assuming you're drunk, come and release figures from your past relationship. So you just come and speak to the figures, essentially. So it's factual, it's non-opinionated. And even apart from calling, when you are doing analysis and it includes your opinions, you have to make it clear. But as much as possible, we come on air without our opinions. We come with the facts. And if you're doing analysis, the analysis are based on the figures, the history. What do the figures say? So like I'm saying, like Adam said, the figures are coming to you from the Situation Room. As an anchor, you don't need to go to the Situation Room if you don't have to. You have producers who are liaising between you and the Situation Room to bring you the details. So you don't really need to do that.
Okay.
So you come and you speak to the figures. Apart from that, there is pre-coverage training and pre-coverage preparation that you go through. You remember the big books? I don't know if you had one, MFA.
I did. I still have it. Anytime you wake up, you are thinking Evans is going to drill you on that book. So you have to know something in that book. Interesting.
And I recollect reading the book, and sometimes people will ask you, "Who's your book?" So we prepare our anchors here. We prepare our anchors. First of all, you don't come and speak your mind. If it is just your opinion, it is stated clearly. If it is not your opinion, it is based on the figures that are available. It was a long, non-stop routine for us, MFA. I mean, we're looking at 4 to 5 hours on air for an anchor. And this time we're working between studios. So we have the JoyNews studios and we have the 997 studios as well. So we were crossing over and then talking about the war. Talking about the war, these are details that we have had to go through over and over again. So we have the figures there and we go through it. And Adam and Co will be updating, you know, the empty map. Adam and Co were updating the empty map with the figures we were getting on the ground. So there are I remember coming in the morning and looking at the map because I was looking for the data. And I didn't have the figures, but I knew that if I go to the map, they had inputted it at the back end, and so it will show up. So the system is just rigorous. Like you just can't get into it just like that. It's just rigorous.
So in all this, you were only to report what was sanctioned.
Just a thing to add to.
Yeah.
Just a thing to add to what Gifty said. I was just a mouthpiece for what we call, but what I read was scripted for me. Was scripted for me from the not the collation room, but the calling room, right? Was scripted. The chief finance officer scripted it together with Ken himself. I had no role to play than to come and add commas. And in fact, what I did, let me tell you exactly what I did to that script. They had written Nada as in Nadaa.
Yeah.
And then they are written JM. And I said, please, let's write the Nada in full and the JM in full.
The editor so that you are.
All I did was write Nada Dodankwa Akufo-Addo in full, and then JM, John Dramani Mahama in full. Winston will tell you. And I just went to read it. It was on the prompter. I didn't say a word out of place because it wasn't my numbers. I just trusted my team that what they're giving me, it's what it is. I had no shred of doubt that what I was reading was accurate, and it was.
Well, we'll be hearing from the man that has been whispering into our ears in terms of directing affairs when it comes to our coverage. But something, you've heard Evans about how the thing was scripted for him. Is that even legal? Should they be scripting for him to go and read everything? I'm sure some will ask, why would that be done? Shouldn't he just be allowed to just do his thing? Or is it part of the stringent measures put in place?
Yeah, the scripting is important because at this stage, you don't want to miss a word. And every word you want to use, you want it to be thought through. So the sentences ought to be clearly thought through. And for the 5 elections that I have been associated with the election headquarters, it was only the 2012 elections, 2012 election headquarters, that I got any close to where all of these things happen. All the time, and even for 2016, 2020, even 2016, all I knew was I am only on air. I don't interact. Because you don't even have the luxury. You get so busy. I remember 2016, I almost slept off. I almost dozed off on live TV. So we got really tired and were asked to go take some rest. It was when I went to the hotel room to rest. And before I could say Jack, I got the information that Evans and the team had already done the projection. So it was only 2012 that I got any close. And even when I got close to this particular, mathematics people, it was only for the purpose of drafting the projection statement. And there were inputs being made. We need to be accurate. We need to state it this way or that way. And then they were haggling over it. I remember they couldn't get exactly what they wanted to do, so they paused. They did it about 3 times. It was the 3rd time that they finished the statement that they had to hand over to, I think at the time it was myself, Steve Ante, and then Evans Mensah that had to take care of that. But I needed to also say that as far back as 2004, my very first experience, I remember that even in Kumasi, Electoral Commission officers were made to come there and give us training. Those of us who were going to do the coverage, we were given training by electoral commission officers. And as far as I recall, since then, every election headquarters planning has had electoral commission officers helping us with the training. Of course, sometimes there are senior legal persons, you know, private lawyers from elsewhere being brought in to assist us in the process. Of course, I have graduated to the point where I study the election laws as though it was a special area, so I'm also able to give a little assistance.
Okay.
It's been a very enjoying exercise to do. I just love it.
Yes, of course, you sure do. You ought to love it to be in it. But we'll talk about the social media reactions right after the projection was done. Now that I know that it's not just Evans Mensah by himself that did that, because I didn't know. I also dozed off at some point, and then I was told that projection is underway, so you ought to, you know, follow. But I just thought that maybe it was just Evans and Winston that has just put something together and they were projecting. But after that, Israel, you follow social media a lot, so you know the talk when it comes to what we did. We've done it over the period, but now we are told we are blue. Previously, when you did it in 2012, we were green, but now we are blue. Looking at the magic wall and the and the colors that we use for the Ghana map, it looks like now you are all blue. All of you on the screen, you are blue. How come?
You see, this is something we've had to live with. I recall in 2008, look, it was one of the very tense moments that we had to endure at Multimedia, such that after the projection, and what we actually did in 2000, the first one we did was to say that the election was too close to call and it's going to go into a runoff. So we did that, and then we had to abandon the studio because it was really, really, really tense, because we felt people were going to come after us. Now, in 2012, that was when I believe one of my colleagues was attacked, because we had called it in one way, and definitely the people were not excited about it. And so they went in for it. They assaulted him, and he's having to live with the trauma and the impact of that attack. Now, we just go about, as we indicated, we were looking at the story, essentially, the story on the ground, and telling the people that this is the story. We're not generating figures, and which is something people must appreciate. We're not generating figures. You have voted. You have told your story. You say this is the way you want it. And then we're just telling you that based on the stories you've told us, this is what it looks like. And that's all we're doing.
Okay.
And we're staying off.
Okay.
But then the reactions, people have come in and people are thinking, oh, we actually went for our figures from some political party. No, we didn't do that. And it's obvious from the conversations. We had the reporters telling
It appears
you,
that is not even possible. From the systems that were employed, it looks like that is not even possible.
And there's been so much backlash, but the people who are out there, who know us, who have been with us throughout the years and throughout the elections, have come to know that, no, these guys, they stay the same.
Okay.
The only thing that changes is the people who come to power, or the people who, when they hear the results, are not happy, and so they feel that we're doing something wrong.
Okay.
We are not doing anything wrong. We're just telling you what the story is. And as you people would have come to realize, we have projected the election successfully. And this will be the fourth time we're actually doing this. Okay, so we're actually perfecting it. We're perfecting this art. So people, we're not interested in who wins. We're just telling you who you voted for and who.
We only speak to the facts. And the figures. We'll go to hear from the rest of the team in terms of the reaction and how they're also taking it, and of course the lighter notes, the backroom stories. We'll get to tell it as well. But I need to go for a break, Israel. I need to go for a quick break. I'll be right back, and then we can talk more to wrap up. Also hear other reactions to the social media criticism. I call it feedback, but we choose to do what we will with it. But let's go for a quick break.
have a stronger room, and we are running shifts. So I came in the morning at 8. It's 12 hours interval. So I am focusing on the Eastern region. My other colleagues are doing OT. He's doing three in a row. OT, Volta, and Northern East. And Kumerica. You know what I mean? Yeah. So yeah. What we are doing is just updating, and then it goes through to the presenters, the studio, and then it just pops up. It graphs in the map, and then that's it. Well, the numbers are not coming in as fast as we want because, of course, we want to verify. We are working with the patient, so we just don't want to project anything. We just have to get it exactly. So sometimes people think that we are delaying, but that's not the thing. We know what the nature of our work and the quality of our work. So all we have to do is just check and check.
Okay, so some backroom. Unfortunately, I can't show it all, but definitely we'll do so. And then also some messages. A lot of messages are coming in. I'm sure once we are talking about social media, it's a good time to bring in some of the messages that you've been sending in. You are tweeting at us at Election HQ. This one says, MFA, keep to the experiences of each one of them, the training, the boots on the ground, and let's cut down on attempts. So, okay. And this one also says, Pastor Eric Amankwa Jr., Canada, you guys did very well. God bless you guys. I'm thinking that a time is coming where we can sit home and vote without physical presence at polling station. This one also says, a good fellow Deofe, listening to the kind of work and preparations you guys put in is so amazing. Good job. You were clearly prepared for the elections than the NDC. The reason they are insulting you guys all week. Edem says, was the declaration pre-recorded? Israel, I'll be asking you that. And Pastor Eric Amankwa says, Canada, you guys did very well. God bless you. I'm thinking that a time is coming where we can sit home and vote. Okay, so I think I've gone through these messages, a lot of your messages coming in. So, guys, I've been talking about the social media reaction. Evans and Winston, are you okay? Winston first.
We're okay.
Let's do Winston first. So, what's been the reaction?
Well, you know, following the projection, you know, you've had lots of people coming into your, mailbox, telling you all manner of things, how they believe that you may have done certain things. But of course, we've explained to them. We do know that, when it comes to politics, once you do something which doesn't favor somebody, all manner of things will be said about you. One thing, however, that, you cannot do is to expect that is to threaten people and sometimes, level all manner of accusations. We have shown and we've talked about how the whole process was. And I just say one thing, look, there were times that, for us as analysts, the shock of the result was one of the reasons that you don't even want to go and check it before you see it on air. Because you want to, for instance, find out, and your emotions as they come when the results are even, when you see the results, all go to the show the look and feel. We've had a lot of people saying a lot of things, but MFA, I just say that, look, when we accepted to do this job, we knew some of the things to expect. It's saddening sometimes when you put in all your efforts and the very people that you're serving will turn around and say all manner of things about you. But in our hearts of hearts, we know that we worked professionally. Nobody influenced us in any way, as we have shown. We've done this over the years, and in all the times that we have done it, not one person has said, I influenced them in any way. And for me, that's the most important thing. The fact that people will talk on social media, but not one person can say, I came out there to influence them. Should let everybody know that sometimes in your anger, be mindful of the things you say.
Thank you, Winston. It appears we're really out of time, but I'll leave it to the director at this point, the director of the entire coverage. He was leading the team. Oshe, I'm sure at this point, directors to go off the air.
Oh, thank you very much. I will speak about the challenge of making sure that what is seen on TV is also heard on radio. So I call it television and tele-listening, and it was very exciting working with all of you. I remember on Tuesday I had to prep MFA not to sleep. Well, that's at 2:30, 3 a.m. MFA was like, oh, she, I'm tired. I said, MFA, please give me a smile, let's go. And I think you really worked hard. For Winston and then Evans, they really worked hard. Something solid analysis. Gifty, whenever she's not on air, Gifty is at the back room helping with production, and Gifty is a very solid producer. I think that Elvis should move her to the producing side instead of anchoring. For all my technical team people, I think, and David, Loretta, Forsin, Gomez, everybody, and all the sound guys, those that we don't get to see on air, but they are behind the scenes, making sure that whatever is seen on air is solid, and the audience get to see what is really good.
Okay, guys,
I think I've exposed.
I'll have to leave you all at this point. We are really out of time. Thank you so much for being a part of tonight's edition of The Probe. Of course, Election Headquarters has been made possible by PetroSol. We also say a big thank you to Senor Hosi, CEO of the bulk oil distributors. They actually gave us food for all the days. We're grateful. And to all our sponsors, PetroSol, Wutria, Lotteries, of course, a number of them. I can't begin to mention. The Cowbell Coffee, tasted, love it. A number of them. Thank you so much. Hair Plus, we are grateful for your company. 25 years we've been here providing bold and fearless journalism. We have constantly remained in opposition, holding those in authority and government accountable, no matter whose ox is God. More importantly, we have and continue to be the voice of the voiceless. Always remember that as a journalist, if you constantly receive applause from those in power, it is time to rethink about your status. We are JoyNews, and we always thrive on your constructive criticism and feedback. It makes us better. I am Emefa Paul. Thanks for your company.